Welcome back to another episode of the Market Take. The date is October 13th, and today's episode, almost said tonight's episode because it's nighttime here, but today's episode is coming out of Vienna, Austria. Last week's episode was in Singapore. Now we're in Austria. So, quite the travels here. A lot to talk about in world news specifically, and a few things to cover in crypto. I'm sure many of you guys know if you're involved in the markets, but let's break it down. So last week we talked about two things. We talked about the government shutdown and then the Gaza peace deals. Well, in terms of the government shutdown, we're now entering our third week here. Not the longest government shutdown we've had so far, but near in there. I believe, and don't quote me on this, I could be off by a few days here, but the longest government shutdown we had was about 35 days plus. So we're nearing 3 weeks now, which is, 21 days here. So still no agreements and still no still no end in near sight here with the government's shutdown. More importantly, though, the Gaza peace deal. So the Gaza peace deal is effective noon as of today in their time, meaning Israel time zone. So let's break it down. There is quite a bit to unpack here. So we're going to spend some time specifically on this topic, everyone. Okay. So with the Gaza peace deal, President Trump met Egypt, and the mediators finally signed a ceasefire deal in Egypt for the Israel-Hamas Palestinian war going on for quite some time here. Israel pulled back their troops, and aid is flowing into Gaza. Quite a bit of leaders present here. Obviously, Trump there, Netanyahu there, the Prime Minister of Canada over there, the British Prime Minister was there as well, Israel Minister of Strategic Affairs, the Qatari Prime Minister there as well, and the reason why all this was going down in Egypt is because Egypt actually plays quite a vital role in this peace deal. Why? Well, that's because they share a border with Gaza. Okay. So does Qatar as well. And that's why Qatar is also playing quite a bit of a key role here, but Egypt primarily being one of the key roles here. So Egypt gives Trump their highest civilian honor, the Order of the Nile. Cool, I guess. I think there could have been a few more things done, if I'm honest. But let's break down kind of everything that's been happening with this deal, what's going on with both sides over here. Okay, so Hamas has released all 20 remaining living Israel hostages in phases, and as of Monday, many of them have been reunited. Monday, obviously, being today. So Israel is set to release 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, including 250 that are serving life sentences in exchange. Okay. Now, these are not my words, but the peace deal has been kind of described as a negative peace. Again, not my words. This is just what was said, and I'm here just to provide you guys with all the information and data. Okay. So it's been described as kind of a negative peace, meaning, yes, there's going to be an absence of violence. There's going to be a ceasefire, but without really addressing the underlying issues about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, including the fact that Israel has expanded into the West Bank. And kind of more importantly is Netanyahu not recognizing Palestine as a state yet. And just so you guys have a bit of context of who has acknowledged Palestine as a state, it's Australia, Belgium, Canada, France, Luxembourg, Monaco, Portugal, the UK, Armenia, shout out, Barbados, Ireland, Jamaica. Let me open up the list here because I can't memorize them all. Jamaica, Norway, Slovenia, Spain, the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Mexico, Colombia, St. Lucia, even the Vatican, Sweden, Guatemala, Haiti, Thailand, Belize, and many, many others uh, have described, and I'm sorry, not described, have recognized Palestine as a state. Israel still has not. Okay, a lot to kind of unpack there for sure. One of the spokespersons for the UNICEF has basically stated, while the people of Gaza City have been returning, what they've been seeing is the neighborhoods lacking food, water, clothing, and we have winter coming up here as well, right? So, um, you know, we touched up about this kind of a bit last week as well on the call, that about 98% or so of the soil has been basically deemed unfarmable. Like, you can't grow anything off the soil. And over 80% of the buildings have been destroyed, turned into rubble. There's really not much left there at all. So one of the big concerns is, you know, with winter especially coming, are they going to have enough warmth, food? Because a lot of the injured, especially the kids, are malnourished. They're all displaced. Mental health needs need concerns as well. So much needs to go into rebuilding, and rebuilding was kind of a priority into the discussions of it. So um although the United Nations did say that they're going to set aside 11 million for Gaza aid, that's not going to be nearly enough. Like, like I said, the more and more families that are returning to Gaza City are seeing that everything has just been turned into dust, turned into rubble. So a lot of the families are just kind of curious, like, what's going to happen here. And that's totally understandable, right? If you return home and there's nothing left, what are you going to do? And all these people have been displaced for so long now. So much of the soil has been it's just been decimated. They can't grow anything off the crops. Like I said, 80% of the buildings have been destroyed. So, tough times for all the people in that region, truly. So the UN has set aside another 11 million for Gaza aid. And Trump also said in the statement as well that that there are a lot of other countries that are going to offer aid. Now, he didn't name those countries specifically. Not sure why, but in the statement that he did make, it was something along the lines of, there are very, very wealthy countries that are going to contribute aid to it. And I'm going to guess it's kind of the surrounding countries like Qatar that we named, Saudi, some of the UAE, probably the US as well. So a lot there going on, guys. A lot there. I think the biggest thing is going to be making sure that they get aid and making sure that they get buildings put up, as fast as possible. Something else that Trump said, not word for word, but something said, he always likes to kind of pat himself on the back, but we're going to be building buildings the best as possible. As you guys know, we come from a real estate background, yada, yada, yada. We're experts at building. But again, overall, the what's the word I'm looking for here? The overall, like I said, consensus is that the people of Palestine just kind of see this as as a negative piece. Basically, is okay. Yes, they're not going to attack us anymore. Um, and I'm not speaking about Hamas here. And like I said in the last episode, fuck them, right? I'm speaking about the people of Palestine here. Um, their country has been basically destroyed. Um, everything has to be rebuilt. Farmlands are done, so they need food ASAP. They need clothing ASAP, and they need shelter ASAP. So that's what's going on over there right now. So my best to all the people affected over there. Let's go into some other news here. So in December of 2024, the U.S. government placed a company called WingTech on their like national security list. Okay, and as of about 10 now, probably 11-ish hours ago, the Dutch government has taken over control of a company called Nexperia, which is a Chinese-owned semiconductor firm in the Netherlands. And this was done to basically protect Europe's supply of chips and cars, saying that, they're having concerns about serious shortages, for the government, for the chips that they need, all that stuff. So, um, and this is all coming after more and more tensions from the EU and China because of all the trade that's been going on between Beijing and Russia. So, for the folks that don't know, Russia and China have a very, very strong relationship, and especially since the sanctions. I visit Russia quite often. When I was there last year, you guys probably saw the Tucker Carlson, Vladimir Putin spoof interview that I did in Moscow last year. If you haven't, you should check it out on our YouTube or check it out on the Stock Log page. It is quite entertaining. But ever since the sanctions, a lot of the trade in the EU, all the trade basically from the EU has stopped. And the trade with China and Russia has increased tremendously. For example, all of the German automakers like Mercedes, Audi, BMW have pulled out of Russia, and that didn't really hurt Russia. It really hurt the car makers. Russia accounted for over 22% of the sales of all Mercedes S classes and G wagons. If you go to Russia, you go to Armenia, when people get married over there, they usually rent like 10 to 20 G wagons, black ones, and then they rent one white S class, and that's where the bride and the groom drive in a white car. But those cars are tremendously popular over there. And when I went to Russia last year, what I saw was no more S classes, really, except some of the older models, the G wagons. Some of the older models. Of course, they still had the new ones, but big bucks to import those. Big bucks for sure. But you started to see cars that looked just like S classes, cars that looked just like the BMW 7 Series, and excuse me, and they're all from Chinese brands. And let me tell you, the interiors were sick, like really, really sick. So a lot of the Chinese EV cars, the Chinese luxury cars have flooded the Russia market. So again, just saying that relationships between China and Russia have been getting stronger and stronger, and that has become concerned for the US and for the EU. So much so that they even made this company shut down their factory in Newport that they had. So um, NXP has been basically taken over by the Dutch government, and yeah, so man, just so many tensions around the world. Shit is just getting crazy. And speaking of tensions around the world, Madagascar. The president of Madagascar, and excuse me because I'm going to butcher his name, but it's like Andre Rajolina. I hope I said that right. Andre Rajolina. He has now fled the country twice in in the last few months. Basically, what's going on over there is that he fled the country with the help of France in a French plane, because he's getting crazy protests, not only from his citizens, but from the military as well. So thousands and thousands of Gen Z protesters have kind of taken over the capital over there, demanding that this guy resign because of economic woes, corruption, the failure of the government, and violence has kind of erupted all over in October, with the population and their security forces. But here's where stuff gets even more interesting, though, is the CAPSAT they call, which is the Madagascar Armed Forces Presidential Security. Okay. The presidential security has sided with the protesters, have sided with the people, refusing government orders and refusing any orders from Rajoelina, and refusing a installment of new military chief. So that's kind of crazy to see that the government, I'm sorry, that the government's forces have taken sides with the civilians, basically nearing like a civil war. And these protests have been going on for weeks, and so social media in Madagascar has been growing and growing for the situation, all basically siding for the public. And the military as well has been basically saying, we're not getting paid enough to kill our own civilians and stuff like that. So they are completely siding with the civilians, as they should, because this president has been corrupt. He's been failing to provide what he said he was going to provide. You know, not to knock on the US, but that's kind of sounding like what's been going on the US too, right? And in a lot of other places, not just the US. So it's been really interesting to see everything kind of unfold over there. And you're seeing the soldiers and the military forces and the president's security all basically joining forces with the public. So very interesting to see what's going to unfold over there. Crazy stuff. Basically like a civil war going on. And in more news, some more Russia-Ukraine stuff, as Russia launches a massive Ukrainian energy infrastructure attack, with over 450 drones and over 30 missiles, including ballistic ones, targeting thermal power plants, gas facilities, DTEC group stations, which is like one of the biggest providers of gas and heat and all that stuff. Basically striking multiple regions, and including Kiev, and over 7-8 other regions of Ukraine. Only about 60 of those drones got intercepted, so the other 390 all hit. Over 28,000 families in the Kiev area and over 800 different businesses are basically left without power. Um, and President Zelensky has kind of called it a cynical pre-winter assault to deny civilians power, water, and heat, repair crews, and basically crushing all the energy facilities out there. And this is kind of a like a very, very tactical move from Russia, and it's not their first time doing that. For context, in World War II, Russia did this to the German forces as well. It was called scorched earth policy. Basically, they burned all of the land. They killed all of the farm life and wildlife. So basically, when the German forces advanced, they had no wood to burn to stay warm. They had no animals to kill to feed their troops. And this is kind of the modern version of that, honestly. So I don't know when the tensions will stop over there, but I imagine if this goes on for another 6, 12, 18 months, I'm not sure what's going to be left of Ukraine, if I'm honest. And we're here in Austria right now, and so many of the people around us, I'd say one in four, are either Russians or Ukrainians that do not believe in the war, and they have left Russia or they have left Ukraine and are here in Austria. And that's kind of, I can't speak for all of the EU because this year, in terms of the EU places I've been to, is only Austria. We do go to Switzerland next week, and we go to Denmark the week after. But I'm telling you, one in four right now that I hear and working at the cafes, at the restaurants, they're all Russian or they're all Ukrainian that just don't believe in the war that's going on. And, Trump kind of stepped in office saying that he was going to stop this the first day. So what's going on? Because it ain't happening. So that's what's going on in the world right now. It feels like we can kind of just never catch a break. And I haven't even mentioned about the floods, in Italy, the typhoons in Japan. It's like, dude, are we ever going to catch a break here or what? But I really hope these wars do come to an end here soon, because it's just all these people in high power that are doing it all, and they're not the ones suffering. It's all the innocent civilians on all sides, right? In Israel, in Palestine, Ukraine, in Russia. It's the civilians that are suffering here. So it's quite sad. It's quite sad. What else is going on, guys? Really, it's just kind of a world news heavy type of day today. Sorry. But what else is going on? So I'm sure you guys saw, if you're participating in the stock market, Friday stock market close sold off. It wasn't a crazy sell off, but it was quite a bit of a strong sell off. The S&P 500 lost quite a bit of points. We were kind of wondering what's going on, like why the random sell off like that, because all the charts were looking pretty strong. And then when the stock market closed, Trump announced 100% tariff increase to China. And, this kind of ties into the stock news that we're going to talk about, and kind of ties into the crypto news that we're also going to talk about. But all this happens, and then he follows up with basically, all is good, like 2 days later. Because he says, the president of China and I talked, it's all good. It was just a misunderstanding. Which, we're going to talk about more when we kind of talk into crypto. But if you ask me, This was completely orchestrated just so the average Joe Schmo can blame, oh, it was Trump's tariff tweet that caused the market crash. Guys, I've been around the market for a very long time. One tweet like that does not cause a cascade of crypto being crushed like that. This was a orchestrated liquidation event to the fullest, but let's talk a bit more about that when we get into crypto. But that's kind of the end of world news there. But yeah, Trump says, hey, you know what? We're gonna tariff China another 100% because the president of China doesn't want to get along. And then 2 days later, up, just kidding. It was just a misunderstanding. Come on. Come on. Stock news. Okay. Gold breaks 4,100, man. Over 4,000. Crazy move. And, this goes, um, we did cover this last week as well, but we were talking about how several states have now said that they're going to accept gold and silver as currency again. But gold breaks records high, crosses over $4,100. So bravo to anyone investing in gold. And of course, the rate cut has helped fuel this rally as well. And silver has been running rampant as well, with silver hitting over $50. It's around 51.90-ish right now. If you're looking for a silver ETF to invest in, that is SLV. Big fan of that. SLV for sure. So the last time we saw this was probably 20-ish, 30-ish years ago. So gold squeezing and has been rallying, but now silver is on the hunt and is squeezing and rallying as well. So be on the lookout for silver to squeeze more. You'll hear it first. I would not be surprised if silver hits $100. Would not be surprised at all, guys. It's only about 51, nearing 52 right now. I haven't checked the prices in the last few hours, but it was trading at the high $51 range. Okay. And you're starting to see the hedge funds kind of shift to industrials in terms of the sectors that they are investing in. So, this is primarily one as a hedge between kind of all the tensions around the world, investing into precious metals, investing into infrastructure, investing into industrial stocks. So keep an eye out for industrial stocks. And, that could be anything, like I said, from gold and silver to energy stocks, to energy ETFs, to basically the shift from kind of the tech sector and the shift from the S&P 500, which the S&P 500 will always do well. But basically kind of going into those Dow Jones stocks. Okay. A lot of industrial investing going on, precious metals going on, but primarily focus is all the global industrial stocks. Okay. That's really it for stocks. And for crypto, the major news was kind of what we said. So let's kind of break that down a little bit more. It's kind of hard to beat this headline because it was so crazy of what happened, guys. So crazy of what happened. So October 10th. Oh man, and I went to bed like an hour before all this happens because it was late here. And here's why this is the biggest headline and kind of the only headline that took over anything. Like, you cannot scroll on Twitter without seeing this only. And that's the crash that happened. it's everywhere. If you Google search biggest crypto news, biggest crypto events, whether it be on Google, on Grok, on Chat GBT, I think I already said X. This is all everyone is talking about. So basically, $19 billion liquidated in crypto in 24 hours, mainly in leverage traders, people going long, right? Because if you were holding spot, you didn't get liquidated unless you had a stop loss set on your spot. But when I'm talking about spot, that basically means hodlers, right? People holding, people not really setting up a stop loss. They're just holding their favorite coins and project. Okay. So we had $19 billion in positions liquidated, the biggest in history. And like I said, to put it in context, I'm going to talk about the biggest crashes we've had. So COVID is taking last place in terms of the biggest crashes for crypto. Okay. It was $1.2 billion. Okay. $1.2 billion liquidated in the COVID crash. Okay. And it was around $2 to $3 billion liquidated in the collapse of FTX. You know, you guys all know what FTX is. Sam Bankman douche. Sam Bankman Fried. $2 to $3 billion crash. And then what was the other biggest crash that happened? This was around May of 2022, just a few months before the FTX one, was a $3 to $5 billion crash from the crash of Terra Luna and from the crash of the Terra Luna stablecoin that was no longer pegged because it had no more backing. It basically got evaporated, guys, evaporated. So again, 19 billion versus the 1.2 in COVID, 2 to 3 billion from FTX, and 3 to 5 billion from the Terra Luna crash. So even if we say it was 3 billion, 5 billion, and the 1.2 billion, guys, that only puts us at freaking 9.2 billion compared to 19 billion, man. And like I said, 87% of those liquidations were from people going long. And like I said, I've been around this game for a long time, guys. I've been around the crypto market since 2016. Okay. I went full time trading in 2019. So I've been in the game since 2016. That's 9 years that I've been in the game. I've never seen a crash this big. And I've seen every headline you can think of, right? I traded through COVID. I traded the stock market through COVID when we had back-to-back circuit breakers, okay? And I'm using some stock lingo here, but if you don't know what a circuit breaker is in the stock market, it's when you plug in too much stuff and you blow up all the lights. I'm just kidding. But funny enough, that happened here in this room about 4 or 5 hours ago. I plugged in my adapter and then we plugged in a surge protector from the US and I hit the on button and it went and I jumped up and then I was like, oh shit. All the lights, everything went out. I'm like, oh shit. I knew I should have just used my European surge protector. But for some reason, I wanted to use my adapter and plug in the US one that we had, and I blew up all the fuses in the room, and they had to reset it. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. So a circuit breaker in the stock market is when the stock market, especially the indexes, fall too much. Now, when stocks fall too much and too quickly and too volatile, they get halted. And the technical term is a halt. But when the indexes, right, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones, which everyone who has a 401k, a retirement, even does hands-off investing, basically everyone, if you have anything invested, you are invested in to the S&P 500, into the Nasdaq, and into the Dow Jones one way or another. Okay. You have your high growth, your low growth, your safer stocks, all that stuff. You're invested into those three one way or another, whether it be directly into them or whether it be in an ETF, you are invested in those. So when those fall too much, they literally stop all trading for the entire stock market, right? When one stock specifically is stopped, that's called a halt. But when they stop the entire stock market, it's called a circuit breaker. And I traded through 3 of those during COVID, guys. 3 of those, okay? That was pretty crazy. But even that was not a drop like we saw in crypto. So, if you ask me, if you had to put a gun to my head right now and said, if you don't get this answer correct, you are dead. Without a doubt, this was the most engineered liquidation event, if you ask me. And Papa Trump was involved, if you ask me. Okay. Papa Trump, but there's no way he could have done this alone. Without a doubt, there was exchanges involved. If you ask me what exchange I think it was Binance. I think Binance helped. I'm not sure if you guys saw Trump all of a sudden said he's going to pardon CZ as well. There's more to it as well. So adding to the suspicion, so World Liberty Financial Coin, WLFI, one of the biggest whales of that token, I'm going to guess was an insider. Well, for sure was an insider. They dumped their entire bag about 4 to 5 hours before Trump tweeted all this stuff to Xi Jinping, however you say his name. That is the Chinese president. That caused World Liberty Financial Token to drop 30%. Now, if you look at all of the other crypto projects, all the other crypto coins, none of them dropped 4 to 5 hours before that announcement was made. So that's why I'm thinking Trump organization must have had something to do with this. And it was an engineered attack. And I'm going to add a little bit more to that on why I think that as well. But hold on, okay? So, like I said, 30% drop on World Liberty Financial Token as one of their biggest whales drops their entire bag. And now World Liberty Financial recovered about 13%-ish after that dump. And then about 4 to 5 hours later, that's when Trump made that tweet. And then World Liberty Financial dumped another 54% in like 15 minutes. And then, of course, when he made that tweet, everything else dropped. I'm talking 50, 60, 70%, guys. The only thing that didn't take a big hit was Bitcoin. It dropped to 108K, which is a support level that, ask any stock locked member, we've been trading from 114 to 108, 108 to 114 to 120. Those are our levels. Those are support levels. Bitcoin did nothing because no one's selling Bitcoin. They liquidated the shit out of all retail traders for $19 billion. And let's keep adding more to this crazy shit, okay? You're seeing all the story, brand new hyper liquid trader made $80 to $200 million in profit because they opened a brand new hyper liquid account and shorted Bitcoin. Guys, come on. I know you guys aren't that stupid, right? I know I'm not that stupid, right? But I know you guys aren't that stupid either. You really think some brand new trader 30 minutes before this tweet goes down, let me just open a brand new account, send millions there, and decide to take a leverage short position against Bitcoin? Come on, cut the shit. This wasn't the most engineered insider shit ever. Not to mention Baron Trump, Trump's 20-year-old son or 19-year-old son, his net worth is up 80 to 100 million since Trump has taken office. Or I think even like up like 150 million. Some shit is going on. Something sketchy. We covered this on a show before, and you could do the research yourself. Putin's second right-hand man in charge, he said this. He said the Trump administration and U.S. are going to use crypto to wipe away all their national debt. Let that sink in for a sec. They're going to use crypto to wipe away all their national debt. Basically, make a bag on crypto, devalue the dollar so much that the dollar basically kind of becomes worthless, and they can buy infinite dollars with crypto because crypto will be so much stronger, especially Bitcoin will be so much stronger against the dollar. They could buy back all the dollars and just pay off their debt, basically, right? You can't make Bitcoin more inflationary, right? But you can make the dollar lose its value more, right? So if one Bitcoin, is worth a price, I think it's like $114,000, right? If the dollar keeps getting weaker and Bitcoin keeps getting stronger to the dollar, then one Bitcoin is going to go up even more and 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 more to the dollar. And that's how you wipe away the US $37 trillion debt now. And like I've said before, if you had to put a gun to my head and I said, who made Bitcoin? NSA or CIA? Why do I say that? Because the SHA-256, SHA-256, the cryptography, the technology behind Bitcoin, that was made by the NSA. If you don't believe me, just fact check me. That was made by the NSA. Could just be a master's the biggest psyop plan we've ever seen. Just some stuff to think about. Really the only other crypto news is the Pudgy Penguin ETF coming up October 18th. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, October. You know what? Let me research that because it's the XRP ETF that's October 18th. Let me real Pudgy Penguin ETF. But I know the Pudgy Penguin ETF here is going to come out here pretty soon. Could be the 16th, but I know for a fact we got the XRP ETF. There's 6 different ones. That's gonna be October 18th, October 19th, October 21st, and October 23rd. But I wouldn't even worry about the ones on the 21st and the 23rd because whatever happens on the 18th and 19th is going to set the tone for all the other ones. And then the Pudgy Penguin ETF, I think we're going to know in like the next 24 hours or so. I don't think that shit's going to get passed. And if it does pass, then that's wild. Then everything I've known about traditional finances is about to change. Yeah, guys, that is really it for crypto news. There was no other major news to really talk about besides that crazy fabricated ass dump. Super fabricated, man. Come on. Stop playing with me. That's it, guys. My advice is don't buy shit projects. Buy the projects you love, buy the projects that are doing something. You guys probably, if you follow me on IG, heard me call out a crypto influencer, Mark Moss, who said altcoin season is dead. It's never coming. That guy's a bozo. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know how to check the totals. Like, what are you, freaking retarded? So if you don't know what the totals are, there's total 1, which is the entire cryptocurrency market cap. And then there's total 2, which is the entire cryptocurrency market cap, excluding Bitcoin. So that means Ethereum and all altcoins. And then there's total 3, which is entire crypto market cap, excluding Bitcoin and excluding ETH. So all altcoins, all hundreds and thousands of altcoins. That hit new all-time highs just the other month. We hit 1.19 trillion. The previous all-time high was 1.13 or 1.14 trillion. Okay. So what does that mean? That means forget coins like Shiba, Ape, Gala. Fuck, there's so many other coins. So many other coins that will never hit all-time high. Never again. They're done. See you later. Bye-bye. You got to look at coins like Hyperliquid, right? Coins like Ondo that hit all-time highs this cycle, right? Coins like AVAX, coins like Solana, right? The coins that are actually doing stuff are going to be the coins that survive. I've said this so many other times. This is what I spoke about in Singapore. That WAGMI shit is gone. We are not all going to make it. Sorry about it. That is no longer the landscape of crypto. You can't just throw money in coins and thinking that you're going to make a buck. Only the projects that are actually doing something for the ecosystem to improve the ecosystem, those are going to be the ones that last. That's my best advice that I could give, is pick out the strong coins that are actually doing stuff. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Market Take. The next one will be in Switzerland. So we will be in Switzerland for the next, we leave Austria the 16th. We'll be in Switzerland for 10 days exactly. Fodi and I got the Lugano Plan B Forum, which is the Plan Bitcoin Forum conference in Lugano. Switzerland is big into crypto. Lugano specifically, which is the lake in Switzerland. If you haven't been there, it's beautiful. Not as beautiful as Lucerne, but very, very beautiful. They have over 400 to 500 different cafes and restaurants that have been taking crypto for over a year now. You can even buy McDonald's with crypto and they gave you 30% cash back because they want your damn crypto. So excited to share what we learned there at that conference. It'll be awesome. So we'll see you guys next week on the Market Take. Thanks.